making some changes. We're first time back after 2 weeks, and this is what happens. Everything starts to fall apart.
Hey, you know what? It's all fine. To everybody that's joining us live, thank you so much for joining us. For everybody that's watching us on replay, please remember to like and subscribe. It always helps the channel. But yeah, it's like great to be back after 2 weeks, Jeff.
It is.
And we have been literally all over the world
Yes,
in the
we
last
have.
2 weeks.
We absolutely have.
Yeah,
We were in
yeah.
Amsterdam all last week, which was surreal. It was my first time ever being overseas, which was really cool.
So Jeff, what was your favorite part of what was your most favorite part and what like Rose and Thorn this? What is your most favorite part and what was the thing that it's like, oof, man, I wasn't ready for this?
So they're almost exactly the same thing, which is kind of funny. So my favorite thing was getting to spend almost all day, every day at the media desk for our zone and the event, interviewing people, meeting all these people, interviewing them, coaching them, having a blast. That was awesome. That was also the biggest problem for because they were long, long days. Like night first interviews would like start at 9 a.m. and I wouldn't until like 6 p.m. local time. And oh my gosh, every day I was so beat up after that. So beat up. Oh,
So
it
Jeff,
was rough.
did you okay, so two things. One, did you drink the hot mint tea, which I am now drinking all the time since I got back from Amsterdam. And that is in code for something, by the way. Like I didn't go and get hot mint tea and then it felt great. But did you drink the hot mint tea? And then second, did you lose your voice?
I did not lose my voice. I could never once find the hot mint tea. I tried. I like tried so hard everywhere I could go to find the mint tea, but I finally found coffee. But like day 3, I think is when I found coffee. That's funny.
Yeah.
Kaval just joined. Hey Kaval. So Kaval was running the media desk, and I was there being in support of her, like doing the interviews and stuff like that. You did not beat me up on that, Kaval. I volunteered for the pain. It was amazing. I would not change it for the world. It just happened to be very exhausting.
It was awesome. You all did great. You know, I mean, there was definitely some Kessel Chat connection points. But for anybody that doesn't know this, a drink that is often had in Amsterdam, which I will tell you this, like this isn't the garden chat, but I'm a rather regular gardener. Like I love gardening. I love growing things
Mm-hmm.
with my hands, Frodo Baggins style or Samwise Gamgee
Samwise
style.
Gamgee.
And like I have looked at a plant the way that Samwise Gamgee does in the extended fellowship, and so I had never in my life thought about taking raw, like just cut mint, like sprigs of mint, throwing them into a glass, a mug, and filling that up with hot water, and then putting a dash of honey in there. I don't know why that had never occurred to me. It is like my favorite drink. I since have come home from Amsterdam. I've made it. I think every single day I've been home, and because I think we're both talking about this too. We've both been sick, and that just comes with travel. But yeah, I love this hot mint tea. I almost feel very like high fantasy. I'm drinking my tea while in my little library here in my
Mm-hmm.
office, you know, like pleasantly you know, reading my books, Bilbo Baggins style.
That's awesome.
So yeah, yeah.
Ever since we got back, yeah, I actually told my wife about it the other day, and I meant to go buy mint from Whole Foods just so I could do this. But I do have tea. Tea is like a thing, a staple in my life. So we don't make a lot
Yes.
of coffee in the morning, and ever since we got these warming mugs for
Yes.
Christmas, I use this.
Yes.
I think I told you this. I actually found that this thing helps me not drink as much coffee because I really found that I
Ah.
just wanted to drink something warm. So as long as I have it in
Yes.
this, I just have warm things to drink all the time. But I always keep like a bunch of like the yogi teas. So I've got my nighty night tea because I love my Valerian nighty night tea with a little bit of anise and chamomile, and it's I love it. Um, but we
Nice.
also bought some like it's called, but it's like stomachies. It's like tea that's designed to help with an upset stomach. So it tastes amazing, but it like helps like almost like probiotics. It's really good. Um, I have a like it's called like energy wise tea that has got like tangerine and rosebud and other thing, but it's actually got a little bit of caffeine in it, so it kind of helps wake you up in the afternoon.
That's nice.
Oh, dude, I
That's
love
nice.
having like I'm trying to minimize the amount of coffee I drink, and then just have a lot of really good tasting teas, and pour a little bit of vanilla almond milk in it, and like it just makes it taste like a nice little treat.
Yes. Yes, it is. I a thing that I love when I travel is I always try to take home stuff that's like unique, like
Hmm.
stuff that I like even if it's simple. I brought home a bunch of the tea that they had
Oh
there.
yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I love this, and I've never seen this in the United States, so I like was I've oh gosh, like I declared it for customs, just letting everybody know. Like I wasn't trying to like bring in a bunch of other stuff, but I will say that I had a delicious amount of foods and drinks and everything that I thought like, oh, I'm gonna bring this home. I brought home some chocolates. I brought home so many different types of chocolates. I've also, of course, brought home a lot of cheese. This is, I feel like this fits in the Kessel Chat because it's kind of a smuggler's run. And although not
Oh
smuggling, this
yes.
is all goods. So yeah, I just anybody that's traveling abroad, not where you are in your home, find the thing that they have that's different from the things you have at home, and then bring them back and share them.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
it was great being out there.
It was. I brought home edibles wise, and I don't mean that kind of edible. The kind of eating things I
Again,
brought.
we keep circling it.
Yeah, no,
We were in
I don't
Amsterdam and
do
we
those
keep
kinds of
circling it.
edibles. Like that's not a thing that I do because I get weight. I have severe anxiety anyway, and for some reason, people would think that that would help, and it does not. For me, it has the literally the exact opposite effect. It makes me more anxious and have panic attacks because I feel out of control. So no, it was not that kind of edible. What I brought home was some soft chew black licorice because I love black licorice. Like I can eat black licorice literally all day long, just like I can eat salsa all day long. I can eat
Love,
black
love.
licorice constantly. And I found a kind that had like all kinds of other aromatics in it. So it tasted not like just straight
Wow.
anise or licorice. It tasted like this other savory, like spicy. It was, oh God, it was amazing. I brought that home.
Uh,
Go ahead.
I right on you. By the way, like if that isn't the most like adult thing, like when I was a kid, I did not like black licorice. I did not like that. And it's
The
funny you
bite.
say anise, and I've always grown up hearing it anise, and I don't know if what's right, and so I'm just gonna like say that, but I would think you're probably right. That flavor though is so particular,
Yes.
or it's like very it's I love that flavor now. It's like fennel or
Oh my
like
God, I
other
love fennel.
certain spices that I'm like, oh yes, like give
Dude, I
me more
love
of
cooking
that.
with fennel. We discovered this at Trader Joe's. You can buy a 2 pack of the bulbs already like
Yeah,
sheared, ready to go. I've been finding like we're
yeah.
just gonna put those in tacos, put it in everything. Like
You put it in anything.
saute it down a little bit, and whatever bold
Yeah,
flavor you think it's gonna have mellows out, and it's just really a
yeah,
good addition to. Yeah, I totally love it. I brought my wife home
yeah.
cheese because gotta bring the family home something. I did not
Gotta
bring
be
her
cheap.
any. They don't call it. It's not pronounced Gouda in the Netherlands. It's Gouda, and so I didn't bring home any
Yes.
Gouda for her, but I did bring home some old Amsterdam cheese, like a particular style they make called Old Amsterdam cheese, and with a carving knife and all that type of stuff. And
That's
then I
cool.
brought what did I bring home? What was the other thing I brought home? Oh, so I have something I actually need to share. So I brought something not just home, but I brought it to the Netherlands, and then I brought it back with me because I forgot to actually give it to you. So everyone knows, I'm gonna share it with you here because I want you to know what it is, so I can get it to you
Oh,
at some point.
this is
Um,
great.
yeah, I want to get it to you at some point. Where is it?
We were
It is.
talking about this, everyone, like while we were there, and Jeff kept saying, "Hey, wait, I have a thing I need to give you," and I was like,
It's
"Yeah,
for
yeah."
you.
It's just
I this is a so Ryan hit his 10-year anniversary at our company, and I wanted to
that's
do a
right.
little something nice for him. So I got you comic books because that's how it works. That's what I
Oh,
do.
that's so great.
So I got you to start off with. I got you the trade paperback of Star Wars: The High
Oh my
Republic.
gosh.
This is the trade paperback from the main run of the High Republic from Phase One. So
Oh my gosh.
there's like 9 different High Republic comics that happened during Phase One. This is the main Star Wars: The High Republic. There's also the High Republic
I love
Adventures
this.
and a bunch of others. But this is the trade. I forget how far along in the story it goes, but this is the trade paperback from that. So I have, is it volume one? No, it's just, this is called There Is No Fear. I think there's actually a volume two of this, but that way you can
That
get
is
yourself
awesome.
in an easy way into the High Republic. That's
I
part
love
one. I
this.
have this for you in a
Thank you.
nice red comic book bag waiting. Number two is from Phase Two of the High Republic. And this is, actually got you the variant edition of this. This is
Oh,
issue
I
number
love
one
that.
of the High Republic, The Blade. This character is introduced in the High Republic, the first book, which is The Light of the Jedi. I got you the blade. His name was Porter Engel, and he's a cook.
Oh wow.
He's a cook on a planet that is featured in the first book. And later on, people say, wasn't he referred to as the Blade? And he's just kind of talked about wistfully. This run tells you how he got the name the Blade of Bardota.
Oh wow.
It's awesome. He is apparently, according to the Jedi at this time period, the best lightsaber duelist ever. Like,
I love
just
this.
the best. So there's issue number 1 and issue number 2 for you.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That is so cool.
So
Thank
I have
you. Thank
these.
you so
I
much.
have those. Next time we see each other, either in San Jose or whatever, I've got
That is a
these are waiting for you.
that is a kingly gift.
By the
I will be making my way out there as
oh,
soon
dude,
as
anytime.
we gotta plan like a meetup either way. It was funny how the first 2 days we were in Amsterdam, we were able to spend a lot of time together. And Kavel, who's also on this call. By the way, if Rich is on this call, I would say, Rich, this was a prime opportunity to meet with us. And we couldn't like make the connection points there. But Jeff and I were able to have like a pretty awesome dinner that first day that we
Oh,
were
that was
all
awesome.
in. That was great, and that was also some really good food and drinks, and of course in Amsterdam, great beer. And then, which I will also say that the as the
Heineken.
kids would say, the Heineken, it hit different.
It did.
And then the next day we were able to go and spend a bunch of time in museums.
That was
And if
awesome.
there was one thing, it was if there was a thing that I'm coming out of this trip, well, so much. I mean, really, so much is that, and I encourage people, especially post pandemic, if you were traveling before the pandemic and you haven't traveled in a while, please go out and do that. Please get back out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I came back with so much artwork. I was able to really dial in on some art that I love. Every free moment that I had while we were in Amsterdam, I tried to spend it in a museum. And it's funny when you were talking about how the pronunciation of the words, like Gouda, that word,
Howda.
the
Howda.
Howda. The thing that's funny is that I talked to a taxi driver for a while, and he was talking to me about Van Gogh, and I was like, Van Gogh, Van Gogh, and obviously in the United States we would say Van Gogh. And he said, we don't expect you Americans to say that because you don't have that sound in your lexicon. And I was like, dang, if that isn't awesome, like I appreciate it. But he was like, your language is all in the front of your mouth. You don't have any of the back of the mouth sounds. And yeah, I thought that's right. Like that's why like I remember hearing people telling me when we were going to the Rijksmuseum, oh, you got to go to the Van Gogh Museum, Van Gogh. And I was like, what is that? Because I know the Van Gogh Museum's over there, but apparently there's this other museum, and it's like, no, it's the same. And yeah, it was great to kind of see that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage everybody, especially as we start to like get more into visual interpretations of Star Wars, like new interpretations of
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars. Find your museums, find your art that you can really connect with because there's so much that's built on other things. Like I was looking at all of this Islamic art, all of this Asian, East Asian art, and because there were, I also took a Jeff knows this. I took a small detour out to the Louvre, and I was able to see a bunch of things there, and it was like so informative to me of like so many art styles that we see in
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars. Um, and I've also been watching a lot of 1970s like dystopian movies because I feel like that's informing where Andor, my favorite Star Wars property, is going.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, like find like this. If anything, this trip has been like find that art that you love and like dial into it. Like you'll find how that is oddly represented in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It was the Rijksmuseum was one of my favorite places to check out while we were there. Kaval, who's in the I think still on the in the live chat right now, And hey, Mike, it's good to see you here too, buddy. By the way, quick tangent, Mike, Bardoda, as in Bardoda season 6 from the Clone Wars. I am pretty sure that is the crossover point for Porter Engle, the Blade of Bardoda. I believe that is the case, but they haven't got to that in the comics yet. And the whole purpose of that run of comics is to explain how Porter Engle got to be known as the Blade of Bardoda. So we're kind of learning about that. We'll hopefully learn more, but I'm pretty sure that's the linchpin. But back to Amsterdam. Yes, the Calvin and I were walking around when we were meeting up with you, and we were walking around the museum for a little bit, and it was all about the Dutch masters, and that was the main thing that was going on in the museum. And she took me to an area where there was a lot of art centered around the women in Holland and now the Netherlands, and either art they made, art they were featured in, etc. And so it was really interesting to see all of that and realize and you just realize how much you can draw from that, like your own interpretation of what you're seeing, how you can draw from that. And it goes beyond, although it is highly showcased by the character of Thrawn when you read any of his things, how much he gets from art. I love that because it's very on the nose for what you're talking about, Ryan. But I think it's really interesting because if you can listen to any of the audiobooks, especially the reading them for sure, but listen to the audiobooks of like the Thrawn Ascendancy series and listen to how he talks about what he sees in art. There's actually a whole section in, I think it's the middle of the 3-book trilogy where he and Arulani, who are good friends, she's an admiral, he's captain, um, where they're interacting, and he's when they're cadets, and he's trying to teach her how to read art the way that he does, and what that can be derived of a culture from what he's seen either in a painting or the plateware or other things from a culture. And I was remembering that as Kaval and I were walking through a part of the museum and seeing certain things and trying to think, what could I take away from the person who made this or the culture they live in based off of the thing that they created here in front of me? And I'm not sure that I really got any of it, but it was interesting to think that it is possible to ascertain some of that from what you're seeing here. And you're right, the connection with Star Wars is beautiful in that understanding the art that we have in our own world is where, and the things that have happened in our world is where Lucas and Filoni and many others pull from for inspiration and motivation to create these stories. Like they're not pulled out of thin air, they're pulled from things that they learn and experience, and art is such a big part of that. Oh, I lost your audio there.
Sorry, thank you. I just completely agree. Like I was trying to describe this to someone like I the when I was in Paris, the trip that the walk that I did through that museum was basically the walk through historical art time, where it's like, statues, and then the statues that kind of lent to this form and model being then, oh well, let's try for more realism, and then this leading to this type of artwork, the paintings, these paintings kind of there seemed to be this like nice through line of
Mm-hmm.
concepts that were building on each other cross culturally, I might add. Like this is like one group would impact another group, and then suddenly the you learn from the art, and you obviously even see it too in like the cooking and the food. Like this culture would hit this culture, and then suddenly their art would influence each other, their foods would influence each other. And so when I was looking at all this, I just kept seeing like kind of the evolving ideas of where this was going. And I don't know why, but it really got me into like, oh wow, like this is the stuff. Like I like how art is this thing that's like, I don't know, gr- growing and change like a hypercube. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's this thing that's like kind of mutating over time. And I had heard something recently that I was kind of bothered by, which is that the current art form that we're in now is every previous generation, every previous century was building off of the previous century or the previous art movement to create a new one. But our current kind of like postmodern world is it's just we're just 20th century art forms in HD format. And I guess the thing that I was bothered by that, because I thought, no, there's a lot of like originalists out there. There are people that are building, like, I feel like one of the things that people didn't like, Tenet, Tenet was, I don't think, as well received because it was such a complex idea of time and dealing with time. I also just got done watching the entire. I binged all of Severance,
Mm,
and a very common idea in art is identity and memory. A very common idea in film is memory as identity, and then like the loss if you lose your memory, like what who are you really,
yeah.
and the time constraints that are inside a film. And I guess I think this is like the time for Star Wars to be alive, because you really can do a lot of really great things, and I think that's why Andor is singing to me so well, is
Mhm.
because it really is building off of. I don't think it's just 20th century ideas in HD. I think there's a lot of really smart things that it's doing. It's pushing forward what I think is the pre the pre like Soviet fall of Soviet Union dystopian vision, and like elaborating on that, like and making that more real. Like there's almost like a brutalist like view of what Andor's trying to come up with. I don't know. Like I really feel
Yeah.
like I'm coming off my high of spending like hours in museums, but I just am so excited that Star Wars is alive right now and like contributing to that.
I love how you describe that. And something about Andor that you just made me think about is so often when it comes to dystopian stories, we are dropped into that story well down the path. There's a
Yeah.
well worn path that exists already, whether it be way in the past, like the 1984, or Fahrenheit 451, or Soylent Green, or whatever it happens to be, all the way Eon Flux. I don't know if you want to get down that all the way now to like the Hunger Games and things of that nature. But what I find it fascinating about Andor specifically is that we are seeing the dystopian machine build up. Like, yes, the
Yeah.
Empire exists and has existed for a bit, but it also hasn't. It's not completely all consuming. Like there is still a Senate, there is still an active
Yep.
Senate doing things. People still have a hope that this isn't what they suspect it is. The rich are kind of like whatever, I don't care. Most everyone else is like, if I just ignore it, look, there's still a Senate. There's still enough artifacts of what we are used to. I think that's actually a good tangent to a comment you brought up earlier about the Bad Batch. Um, there's still enough artifacts that exist that are active to give people enough of the illusion that they can convince themselves this isn't going to affect us. So that when it does
Yeah.
finally affect them, or little bits happen here and there, it's the slow cuts over a period of time so that you don't notice them until you finally look back and go, oh shoot, this is where we're at. And the tangent here is, and I don't have the spoiler warning, but I'll just tell everyone spoilers if you haven't seen the Bad Batch, and now Ryan hasn't caught up yet either. But in one of the recent episodes, I think it was a couple weeks ago, there is a scene where the Bad Batch end up on Coruscant for a mission, and Omega ends up with I think her name is Senator Chuchi. We met her in the
Mm.
Clone Wars when she was a kid. She's a Pantoran. She was a Pantoran senator, and we met her when she was a kid and just became senator. And there was a couple episode arc in the Clone Wars many years ago. And well, now she's a bit older. She's not terribly older because the timeline's not that far in the grand scheme of things. But she is older, and she's a respected senator. Um, and Omega's paired up with her to do something. And what's interesting is you watch the Senate do their thing, and at the end of the episode, when the story culminates and you're like, ah, they got him. The Emperor shows up in the rotunda, the Senate rotunda, which is alluded to earlier in the episode that that's an
Hmm.
uncommon thing to happen these days. He has faith in the Senate, but he shows up
Hmm.
and he gives an entire speech, and the speech ends with, and I think because of all this stuff, this is all about like the clones and things happening. He ends up saying, I think this is exactly why we need to have my stormtrooper program. And most of the Senate's like, yeah. And the people that we know, the Bales or Bail Organas and whoever else, are like, crap, Palpatine outmaneuvered us. Like, he
Hmm.
did it, and he got us to do it for him. Like, he's not even involved, but he literally, you could see it was orchestrated so that the things that laid out was clearly what he planned to happen. And it was interesting to me because it connects exactly what you said. Like, we're watching the dystopian engine build up momentum, and what we saw in that one episode of the Clone Wars, sorry, of the Bad Batch, is that come to life. We get to see it
Yeah.
literally happen and go, oh, for those who are paying attention, you see it. From How I Met Your Mother. Sometimes you never notice anything until someone says it, and then the glass shatters, and now you can't not see it anymore. That's exactly what happened for these people. They like their glass is shattered. They can't unsee this, but most everyone else is ignoring it or just doesn't realize it's happening yet.
Yeah, I really feel like this is an area for this like post, Disney ownership of Star Wars. Like this is the area to mine. When I was buying the Dark Horse comic books way back when, the Dark Times comic book series was the comic book series that I bought the most. I did buy a little bit of the Cade Skywalker, like future Star Wars visions. Like I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed that. But I feel like there's a lot to mine in the Dark Times, and the politics is just so deep there, and it's really built. It's this is also like Star Wars is like home, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars comes out of this time. Like, yes, it's influenced by Buck Rogers. Yes, it's influenced by the serials of Flash Gordon, all these things that George Lucas saw. But George Lucas is writing this in a, you know, Watergate time, 1970s. He's dealing with this with these large concepts and terms that are all like building off of things like 1984 and a Brave New World and all of these stories that have been told in like the late 50s, early 1960s. All of this complexity of like, what is it to live free? What is it to live unoppressed?
Mm-hmm.
How does one go about fighting fascism when when it's appealing to so many? Because they thrive on order more than they thrive on justice. I think that that's why this works so well, is that this is
Well,
like where
what's
Star Wars was born. So
and
it's like bringing it back home.
what's so interesting about that comment you just made, because so many people, there's a number of people who thrive on order more than they thrive on justice. And what's interesting about that is that also gets to things that we're dealing with in the real world now, which is privilege.
Yes.
The reason those people, and I will emphasize the phrase those people, in Star Wars as an example, but anywhere that are able to thrive on order, at the behest of justice, is because they're typically the ones who benefit from the justice that already is happening, and they don't have to worry. So they can prefer order. The problem is the vast majority of people don't get any justice out of the system at all. So whether they have order or chaos doesn't matter. Justice doesn't exist for them, and so it has the negative effect on them. But I find that so interesting that it's a privilege thing, and we see that at, what did you say, it was Space Miami or Space Fort
Oh
Lauderdale
yeah, space,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
one
I was like, it's Space Miami.
in that one episode
Because
of Andor, like we see that, like this is a clear example of other, like even when he's being followed by stormtroopers and kind of moves out of the way, everybody else
yeah,
that's sitting on their benches is just kind of like, okay,
whatever.
like whatever. It
Doesn't
doesn't. It
it
just
doesn't
I
affect me.
like they're at an amphitheater watching a concert and it's just happened, or a stage performance, and it's, oh, you're the live actors that are running through the audience set. It doesn't affect me at all, so I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah, I mean it's the difference. Like, there's a lot of things that I think that Star Wars is trying to explore right now, and I think that in the Andor series, I think that you see it in the Bad Batch as well. Um, Not as much in the Mandalorian, because Mandalorian is in a time where I think that they're just trying to like write they're really trying to still explore that character and the notion of like kind of uh dueling ideologies.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that it's no accident that the Mandalorians and the Jedi are set alongside of each other in the Mandalorian series. Like, it's because it's one where it's like they are diametrically opposed, and yet they require so much of their faithful. And it's so that's really interesting. But in the Bad Batch and in Andor, you're really getting an exploration of, I think, what we deal with right now. Like it's funny because privilege to me is always a really hard topic to discuss, especially when you feel privilege. And the best way that I try to tell someone, like, oh no, you don't, if you're wondering if you don't know what privilege is, or if you have it, is think of true equity. Equity to a privileged class feels like oppression, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because it's like, oh wait, like I don't wait, this now impacts me in a way that I didn't have to worry about that.
Hmm.
But I like the idea that, what Andor's trying to say. Like, I have watched, I've gone back and watched that series now multiple times. And yeah, like there is something about being able to tell one group of people that you don't need to worry about another, that the things that happen to them have nothing to do with you. And then simultaneously, you've got this other group of freedom fighters that are trying to say, no, an indignity suffered by any of us is an indignity to us all.
Hmm.
Like, it's just a really, gosh, I like can't wait. I know that we were going to talk about Star Wars news, and there isn't a tremendous amount of news on
Right.
Andor, but I know that they're filming right now, and like set photos came out on it. So if you're interested in seeing like kind of what things are starting to look like, um, that is available right now on the internet. Like you can go and search Andor season 2 set photos, and I want to say those came out like either, was it this week? And you can see like a couple of, I'm not going to spoil it, but you can see like a handful of actors, as well as I think some new actors that are coming in for new character roles. All of that's available, and you can kind of see how. What's great is it's great to see that. What sucks is that means that they're like just starting. Like we are some time away from season 2 of Andor.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, you're right. I was double checking some dates right now. There wasn't a ton of news. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. Star Wars Celebration is next month, and there have been a
Yep.
slew of. I didn't get them all written down, but there are a slew of announcements of guests who are going to be there and speaking at Star Wars Celebration. Really wish we could have gone, but next year, hopefully, it'll be back. It's not
Next
back in.
year.
It's not back in. I don't know where it is next year, but I think it's back in the States next year. But
We both have passports now. We've got to start
we
using
can
them.
do
Let's
this.
go.
We can do this. But a couple of things that were interesting that I'm excited about. So I think I told you at Christmas I bought, it's off camera here. I bought a an Xbox for myself so I could play
Yes.
Jedi Fallen Order. I've already finished that, done a bunch of other stuff with it. I pre-ordered Jedi Survivor that comes out in April. So that's coming up here soon. I'm super excited.
That's
But
awesome.
between now and then, there is at least one more book or two more books for the High Republic Phase 2. Those are coming out soon. In addition to that, they are publishing a book on that is a not the novelization of the game, but a novelization within the world of Jedi Fallen Order. I was looking right now to see when that book actually comes out. Um, but there is a Jedi Fallen Order book that will be coming out very shortly. I pre-ordered it the other day, um, and I think it's a side tale. So I think it happens after the game ends, but before
Mhm.
Jedi Survivor comes out. So I'm very curious about that's happening. There's a little bit of drama out there about that. Um, about it. It sounds like either in the novelization or in a live action appearance, there's some rumor about them considering a different actor to play Cal Kestis.
Ooh.
Exactly. So I'm not
Ooh.
sure how true
I,
that
I,
is, or if
I,
it's
I
rumor, if it's
that
just purely a rumor. But
that's silly to me.
it
Like,
is. It would
you've
be very
got the
silly.
actor,
Yes.
you've got the actor. They've already rendered that actor's
Well,
look
and
and
he's been on stage.
expressions
He
into
was on
the
stage
game.
at the last Star Wars Celebration talking about Cal
Yeah, yeah.
Kestis. So that would be very odd if they did that.
It would be more okay if it's like, oh, we're switching a voice actor that whose face is not as easily recognizable, but it's like that actor is Cal Kestis. Like, I just don't understand why you would want to pivot away from that. This isn't one of those things where I could be wrong on this, but I think, and someone can correct me in the comments, but in The Last of Us, with the original game Last of Us, I want to say that the characterization was modeled off of Elliot Page when Elliot was Ellen Page, and that was where a lot of the look of the character came from a
Mm.
long time ago. Well, that was when that actor was like a lot younger.
Yeah.
Well, that actor is older now, so you can't like go back. So you have to find a way to cast someone different. I just I to me it's like if you already have an amazing actor who's bringing so much to this role already, and the video game is not like I don't know, Legend of Zelda in 1985. Like it's this actor with cutscenes acting. Like just and I mean again, it's not like Dark Forces or something or Dark Forces 2 where it's like actual movie, but it is enough to where that actor's there in that role.
Yeah,
Leave
I
him there
totally
in that
agree.
role.
I completely agree with you on that one. So there's that. We'll see what happens with that. One
Yeah.
very interesting piece of news I wanted to drop kind of towards the end here is there was an article that came out about what's his name? What was the actor who played the original Chewbacca? I can't. James Mayhew.
Oh, Peter Mayhew.
Peter
Peter
Mayhew.
Mayhew.
So
Yeah.
there was some news that came out. It ended up being a really good piece of news.
Yes, about the script.
The member very actually more than the script. I mean, the script was the big news, but there was apparently a whole box of memorabilia. So people had bought the house that Peter and his wife lived in when they were in the UK before they moved to the States, as Peter's
Yeah.
disease was debilitating him further. And he couldn't get up into the attic to get, along with other things. They had to move to kind of take care of his health. And the couple who bought the house from them found in a box in the attic, among other things, an original script from one of the movies. And they got it appraised and they were going to sell it. And Peter Mayhew's widow reached out to, I forget which auction house they were going through. And basically, what it turned out, what they ended up working out is that they agreed to pull that from the auction because she explained this wasn't something that we lost. We couldn't get up there anymore. He physically couldn't do it anymore. It was a whole reason for it. And so they asked, please don't sell this. This meant so much to her husband. And so the couple decided not to sell it. It got donated to the Peter Mayhew Foundation. And the request was that it was, I think it was to be sold or to be kept, but it can't be like all the proceeds have to be used
Have to go
by,
back to the foundation. Yeah,
have to go
exactly.
back to the foundation. So
Like it can't be like they weren't going to give the box back over just to his widow directly, but that the money would actually go to in the like
yes,
to support like the foundation, which I thought was a
exactly.
very fair. But that
100%.
script, I know that that script was like going to be run down because it's like anything that's original from that time. It's like man, you can clean up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
I thought that was a really good story because it turned out the article, the way that what I took from the article was that his wife didn't necessarily want it. She wanted to ensure
Yeah.
that it didn't just get sold for profit, that that because it was so meaningful to her husband, that could go to help other people who are dealing with the same sort of thing that her husband dealt with that caused him to pass away. And I thought I'm with you that like that's a totally reasonable request and I'm glad it worked out the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like you have to. I saw that in the news, and I think it was like it was either Christie's or something
Yeah,
like the auction house like they pulled it, and it was just like that's like the right thing to do.
it
Like
is.
it's not like those people that had you know it's like oh I bought a house and then I found out that someone shoved you know Action Comics Superman 1 in the wall and now I'm going to sell that and make a you know $1 million. Congratulations! Like I too am planning to insulate my home with a handful of X-Men comic books. It'll be a nice as whoever buys my house, like it'll be a really nice like surprise when you go to remodel. But like it was just the right thing to do. It was nice to see that. I will say that the big news that has been I think happening a lot lately is Disney is trying to find a balance. And I have thought this was like amazing. I will say really quick though, another bit of news that I found out this week was it was confirmed, I think within the last month, that George Lucas had always intended had originally intended Darth Maul to be the big baddie that would have run through three movies with uh, Emperor Palpatine. And I've thought about that a lot. Like, yeah, you know, I've always been big on like, you know, it's good to have a consistent villain that you're kind of growing with. Villains make heroes. Um, But the other thing that's been really talked about is there's been this huge shakeup at Disney.
Mhm.
Bob Iger's back, and they are really eager to try to like get some things back on track. And some of it has been like what they feel like is kind of a dilution of their brands.
Yeah,
That there might be too much Marvel out, and they had already decided that there was too much Star Wars out. Although in April, they're going to apparently announce that there is going to be a new Star Wars movie. They just, they're trying to like sort out exactly how that's going to shake out. But they are trying to figure out now a balance of how much Star Wars and Marvel is too much Star Wars and Marvel. And people might have already seen in the last 24 hours a bunch of movie dates have also shifted around.
mhm.
The Marvels, which is the sequel to Captain Marvel, has been moved out. A couple of movies have been moved in. Um, it's a really interesting time right now because I think that they're going to slow roll the production of things like Andor. There'll be less Star Wars, and I almost think that might be a good thing.
I agree with you. Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. I think they need to. I don't need so much of this. I
I,
need thoughtful deliveries of stories. That's what I
yes,
need.
I'm with you 100%. I want people, myself included, to be able to live in these stories for a bit
Yep.
longer before we get the next thing. Because part of the
Yes.
problem with the Netflix style, you can just watch anything as quickly as you want to. Not that Disney does that. Obviously, they do it, week to week. But
Yep.
the downside to that is once you have it, you have it. And then the next thing that comes out, it's really easy just to jump into the next thing and not necessarily live in that story for a while. Um, I want to make sure that these stories do still come out. Skeleton Crew is still made. The Acolyte is still made. These sorts of things.
Yeah.
I just don't need them to happen super fast. And I love that one thing that can happen in between all of these properties is these various books, these comic books that can help fill the gap if you
Yes.
really want if
Yes.
you want to live in these stories on a daily basis, but you want something new and fresh on ongoing, that's what we have comic books for. That's what we have trade paperbacks and novels and audiobooks for. Is there's so much that you can get involved with that doesn't have to just be a TV show or movie, so that when you do watch those things, they become more satisfying and they really tug at the emotional and the mental the storytelling strings that we really want to grab onto. They don't just become diluted like you got to put out a monster of the week, Scooby-Doo sort of show.
No, I completely agree. And this is the agreeing chat. I'm looking around my office right now for a book that I just picked up very recently, and it's almost embarrassing. I was in a bookstore and they had a copy of the Kobayashi Maru, which is a book that is from like the late 1970s, and it's
Mhm.
like it's a story on like this is how Captain Kirk, and I've like walked it around my office, and of course, so now I don't have it. But I love books that are like that, and in fact, that was how franchises like Star Wars and Star Trek were able to live on for so long during those times where there wasn't a new movie or there wasn't a new television series. There was always a book or a comic book or something else that was on that you could really engage with. And so I hope that they actually take advantage of more of that print medium, more of that, more of the video game. I feel like that's like the new medium that they could really embrace. Like, give me more of that.
Yeah.
I also like. I know this is gonna sound funny, but I am also not a fan of how they're doing some of the effects now in these movies. And I'm not saying go back to rotoscoping, but checking out this quote from Ken Alger here. It was great. Yes, it was great to live in those stories between releases.
Mhm.
I just recently found something, Jeff, which I know that only you, I think, will appreciate, which is speaking of living between releases. I am like a hoarder of memories, and so like this is my Star Wars ticket for the episode
Mhm.
one, And then I was like, I've been going through a bunch of things. This is Star Wars Episode 2.
Wow.
And then this is Star Wars Episode 3.
Nice.
And I found all of my tickets from every time I went to a Star Wars movie. And there was something so special about having to wait. Like the wait between episode 1 and episode 2 was like unbearable. Like I knew it was going to make a time jump. I knew that Anakin was going to be recast. Nobody knew what was going to happen. Like no one had any idea
Right.
what the movie was going to be called, like what this was going
When
to
that
be.
happens, you almost it was sort of like when the Force Awakens and then the Last Jedi in that time period, you're almost sitting back going, if I just watch the Force Awakens hard enough and enough times, that it will manifest the next set of stories magically. Like I remember
Yes,
that with the you watch the Phantom Menace and like, okay, but if I just see that ending again, the movie will just come out magically afterwards.
I this is gonna sound really funny. I think Phantom Menace is probably the most watched Star Wars movie that I watched more than any other Star Wars movie, and it was
Hmm.
because when I got it on VHS, I might add, Letterbox, that when I got that movie, big thanks
Letterbox.
to my ex girlfriend in high school at the time, who also got me the one with the little film strip in it.
Yes.
Um, uh, I watched that movie endlessly in anticipation of episode 2 coming out. Like all I could think about was like, man, like I can't wait to watch episode 2. And that's what and again, I'm not saying like, and then I was rewarded. Episode 2's got a lot of problems. And episode 1, again, you've heard me say this. Episode 1 is a solid film. Welcome to my TED Talk. Or thanks for attending my TED Talk. I could like make this whole argument as like episode 1's like actually like a good movie, or at least a good film. But it was great to live in that space between when those movies were coming out.
Hmm.
And it was 3 years, and it had been even longer between when Return of the Jedi ended, and episode 1 when episode 1 came out. I just the anticipation for it was so great, but it was great to just like live with those characters. There were like all of these novels that came out, these Obi-Wan novels that came out after episode 1, which was all about like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and like Obi-Wan struggling as Qui-Gon's apprentice. Qui-Gon had this other apprentice, I think his name was Xander, which you can never trust a Xander. And it was great. It was like such a cool thing at that time. And yeah, I can't say enough like how much fun that was. And I feel like slowing down Star Wars isn't a bad thing. I know that Liam Neeson just came out like in the last like day, and he was like, Star Wars's problem is there's too much Star Wars and it's losing its magic. And I kind of agree.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It's one of the reasons why I've gravitated so much to the High Republic books is that there's a whole other element that you can explore and live in, that I think gets lost in delivering TV shows and movies.
Hmm.
We've talked
Hmm.
about this before, but I would honestly be very okay with fewer Star Wars movies, even Marvel movies for that matter, but fewer Star Wars movies, and have those supplemented by different types of series that you can consume, whether they are mini series that are 3 parts, or a TV show like the Clone Wars, or
Yes.
whatever. But then also the print media, the comic books and the print
Yes.
books and the audiobooks, and then go to more Comic Cons, like rather than just having Star Wars Celebration, having a more official presence at a variety of different things, and make it
Oh my gosh, yes.
this multi-layered engagement that people can have, that they can say, I get to watch my series or my movies periodically. Oh, I want to do a little bit more. Great, you can get into the comic books. I want to do a bit more, and there's this other thing you can add on. There's all these other components you can add on to the experience that you're having, that doesn't just have to be, I need more movies. I need bigger and better movies with more action and more CGI and whatever.
We started this discussion about artwork, and I know that we're coming to the close of this episode, and so I'll just say that you just talked about going to cons, and if you want to see like some amazing artwork, like generated by real fans, like people that like love this stuff, go to your local con. And I want to say like Oh gosh, it's just outside of my reach. I am gonna go for this. Hold on, I'll be right
Do
back.
it. Do it.
I'm gonna try to reach. I'm probably gonna spill my cup of coffee. But here we go. Okay, cool. And let me know if you can see it now. But yeah,
Oh, it's a good picture.
this is a cool piece of artwork that I got at a booth
Yeah.
in at one of my local cons. And there's another, and then you start like making relationships with artists. There's another artist that I absolutely love, and he knew that I'm a big Akodama fan from Princess Mononoke, and made sure to have a Akodama available
That's
for me to
awesome,
pick
dude.
up the next time. I love going to cons because there's so much that you can do there. I've got all of this stuff. I've got more artwork now that I really have room for
Let's
in
see if I can.
my office.
I can't get the camera closer,
Um,
but to your point, right here, this piece of art and this piece of art. This features the 501st from the very
mm,
last season of the Clone Wars, where Ahsoka came back and they painted their helmets
yes,
to match Ahsoka. That's a piece of art for that. And then this is a picture of Ahsoka. Or like two or three different profiles of Ahsoka, and again, I got it here in the Contra Costa. It's a very small con. It was the first time I'd ever been to one,
very small.
and I found a guy who he does the artwork by hand, but then he makes prints of it and he sold it, and they were very expensive. And I just happened to really love them, and I got a couple really cool pieces, and it felt
Yeah,
awesome to buy something from a local creator.
this was like $15. And I'm
Yeah,
like if you know Akodama, then you know why, you know that this is awesome. And I'm a big fan of Avatar The Last Airbender, and so I've got like all of this like Avatar The Last Airbender stuff. And at really small cons, I will also say, you will it gets like surprises, like at the Sacramento one, the entire voice cast minus Aang of the Avatar The Last Airbender was there,
that's awesome.
and we met everybody. We met the voice. I mean, all of the voice casts for everybody. We had them all do signatures, and each one of my kids got to go to the voice actor of a character that meant something to them, and then they were able to have a little message that was written on a photo or a poster or something. But yeah, we started talking about like, oh yeah, here we were in Amsterdam going to the Rijksmuseum. You don't need to travel like 1,000 miles to go and like see some amazing like Star Wars art. You can go to your local comic book shop, but go and find your cons. They're all about to start. This is we're about to move into convention season,
Hmm.
and this is the time where you can also spend a lot of really like I someone got these for me as a gift, which is these are original action figures with the lightsabers
Oh, that's so cool,
included
dude.
of Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. I also have Obi-Wan Kenobi over here as well. And so these are the original action figures that you could get back in the 70s. These were purchased for me at a con. This is also just, yeah, a really great time to be able to try these things out. You might even run into a former colleague of Jeff and I's, Rafe, who is a Star Trek quizmaster, and so he actually wrote the original Star Wars official Star Trek trivia book. So yeah, there's like a lot of really cool things you can get out of cons, and yeah,
I
I
think
know
that's
that
a
we're running out of time,
yeah, no,
but
but
I can't plug in enough.
I just want to reinforce what you just said, that I we started off as kind of news stuff and all these sorts of things, but at the end of the day, traveling for the two of us gave us this exposure to, you know,
Yes,
you don't necessarily need a lot of new. I shouldn't say that. We don't necessarily need movies and TV shows to give us the stories that we all really want to enjoy, or we don't need them that frequently. We don't. We feel like we do because it's easy to see all this new content on Netflix and other places. There's nothing wrong with any of that. However, if you let yourself just live in the stories that already exist and interact with people, go on TikTok, go on Instagram, places where you can find a community, go to a Comic Con, join our YouTube stream and watch these things, join other streams, listen to podcasts. There's so many people who have different takes. We've had Chris from the Dark Side Divas on a few times. Anyone who follows that,
great show, great
their
show.
show, yeah, they've been actively breaking. They're actively breaking down each episode of Obi Wan Kenobi right now, But
Yes.
that's what they do is they live in an entire episode of a show for a while. They live in a show for a while, and it lets you live in these stories and really enjoy more about them than just simply I watched it once, it's good TV, and I move on to the next thing. This can be much less about just consuming good content and much more about enjoying a set of stories that can last with us for a long period of time.
No, I agree, especially in this like kind of middling time when like shows are starting to wind down and there is going to be a little bit of a gap. Like it's like what Ken said, like live in those stories between releases. Like this is the time for that. Also, there's a lot of really cool stuff. And I know that we're wrapping up, so I'll just say this really quickly. If you haven't gone and checked out the art AI generated Star Wars art, do so. You can see what would Star Wars look like if directed by Wes Anderson, or what would Star Wars look like if it was an '80s dark fantasy movie. Which I would say Return of the Jedi is kind of an '80s dark fantasy movie. But it kind of reminds me of like the early 2000s. There was a movement to see everything in steampunk, but those all had to be done by a human. This is AI driven, and so if anybody's done like the Lens AI or things like that, like you know that it's a little bit of the uncanny valley. But because it's never going to be produced, it's kind of like it's kind of fun because it's eerie to look at. It's something I don't know what it is. It's very eerie. Go check it out. People have pasted them all to create YouTube videos out of it too, so you can just do like Star Wars generated AI, and you can see it all like pieced together. It's like a total fun thing to do right
Yeah,
now.
that's
So
awesome.
that would be my tip.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thanks everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. Mike, Ken,
Yeah.
Pavel, everyone for joining. It's been awesome to have you. We're back after 2 weeks, so kind of getting the wheels turning again. We'll be back again next week, Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Like,
Yep.
subscribe, all the things, and we will catch up with you really soon.
Right on it. Thanks everybody.
And I think my outro might be actually broken again. So hold on. Everything
It's the
is just
new
a little off
year.
this week.
You know, new year, new us. We're gonna get through it.
We'll get through it. Hold on. I got this. Wait for it. Wait for it. Where is the? That's not it. That's not it.
Or it's the never ending. It's the never ending
It's
show.
the never-ending show. It's
Which,
exactly
as you know, we were talking about never ending story,
we
and
were. We spent a lot of time
I
talking
could
about
keep
that.
talking about that forever. Especially after a
There it is.
recent video that I got from there. So
Exactly.
yeah, we could talk about that more in our
Next
next
time.
show.
Okay, let's try this. Here we go.
Yes.